Ever wonder how the smallest detail can change the course of history? How a quiet, unassuming person can hold the key to a nation's strength? Today, we re-diving into a fascinating story where the might of the military met the mind of a librarian, and the result was nothing short of revolutionary. Picture this. It's the early 20th century. The world is a chessboard of rising tensions. Military power is paramount, and at the heart of that power are the soldiers, specifically the sharpshooters. These are the elite, the best of the best, trained to hit a target from incredible distances. But there was a huge, glaring problem. In real-world combat scenarios, these highly trained marksmen were missing. A lot. It wasn't just a minor issue. It was a crisis. Practice on the range was one thing, but the battlefield was entirely different. The pressure, the chaos, the unpredictable conditions. Something was fundamentally wrong with their training, and no one could figure out what. The top brass was stumped. They tried everything they could think of. More drills, stricter discipline, new rifles, better scopes. You name it, they tried it. Yet, the accuracy rates remained stubbornly, dangerously low. The Army's best shooters were failing when it mattered most. It seemed like an unsolvable puzzle. How could men who could hit a bullseye from 1,000 yards on a calm afternoon miss a man-sized target in the heat of battle? The frustration was immense. The stakes were impossibly high. The military needed an answer, and they needed it fast. But the solution wasn't going to come from a decorated general or a weapons engineer. It was going to come from a place no one ever thought to look. Enter the quiet world of libraries, a realm of dusty books, whispered words, and meticulous order. And in this world worked a man you'd never expect to find at the center of a military revolution. His name was Lieutenant Colonel Hesketh Pritchard. Now, before his military career, he was an explorer, a big game hunter, and an author. But his most powerful weapon wasn't a rifle. It was his mind, honed by years of patient observation and relentless study skills you'd find in any great librarian or researcher. He understood that the biggest challenges are often solved not with more force, but with more knowledge. He had a unique ability to break down complex problems into their simplest parts. When Hesketh Pritchard heard about the sharpshooter problem, he wasn't intimidated, he was intrigued. He approached it not as a soldier but as a researcher. He didn't just look at the what. He obsessed over the why. Why were they missing? He began by gathering data. He read every report, every after-action review, and interviewed countless soldiers. He treated the battlefield like a giant library, and every shot fired was a piece of information, a book to be read and understood. He quickly realized the Army was focused on the wrong thing. They were training marksmen, but they needed to be training snipers. What's the difference? A marksman hits a target. A sniper controls the battlefield through intelligence, stealth, and precision. The key wasn't just shooting, it was observing. And this is where the story takes a fascinating turn. Hesketh Pritchard identified the real enemy, the German sniper. He studied their tactics relentlessly. He realized the German advantage wasn't better rifles or better shots. It was a better system. They were masters of camouflage, concealment, and observation. They didn't just shoot. They gathered intelligence. They reported enemy movements. They created fear and chaos far beyond their numbers. They were practically invisible, blending into the landscape, using clever loopholes and observation posts. They were hunters in the truest sense of the word. Hesketh Pritchard knew that to beat them, the Allies had to become better hunters themselves. So, he established the first formal sniper school for the British Army, but it was unlike any military training seen before. It felt more like a university seminar or a naturalist's field study. The core curriculum wasn't just marksmanship, it was what he called sniping, observation, and scouting. He taught his students to see the world differently. He brought in artists to teach the principles of camouflage and perspective. He had naturalists teach them how to read the landscape, how to notice a freshly turned patch of earth or a bird flying up an alarm. He taught them the art of patience, of staying perfectly still for hours, just watching, gathering information. His classroom was the battlefield itself. He developed new techniques and even new technologies. One of his most brilliant innovations was the dummy head. It sounds simple, almost comical, but it was genius. His teams would create realistic-looking papier match heads, paint them, and slowly raise them above the trench line. The enemy sniper, seeing what they thought was a real head, would take a shot. The bullet would pass through the dummy head, and by using 2 periscopes, Hesketh Pritchard's observers could instantly triangulate the exact location of the enemy sniper's hideout. It was a brilliant trap that used the enemy's own aggression against them. This wasn't just about returning fire, it was about outthinking the opponent. It was a librarian's solution, using information to gain a decisive advantage. The results were astonishing and immediate. Graduates of his school went back to their units, and the dynamic on the front lines began to shift. Allied casualties from German snipers started to drop dramatically. More importantly, the Allied snipers began to dominate. They used their new skills of observation and concealment to neutralize enemy threats, gather critical intelligence, and restore morale. They were no longer just targets. They were the hunters. The quiet librarian-like officer had transformed his men from simple shooters into battlefield intellectuals. He had proven that the most powerful weapon is a well-trained mind. He had turned the tide. The legacy of Hesketh Pritchard's work is immense. He literally wrote the book on modern sniping. His manual, Sniping in France, became the Bible for sniper training programs around the world, and its principles are still taught today. He showed the military that observation is just as important as marksmanship, that intelligence is as deadly as a bullet. He proved that solving a problem often requires looking at it from a completely new angle, and that the best ideas can come from the most unexpected places. It's a powerful reminder that true strength isn't just about brute force. It's about knowledge, patience, and the ability to see what others miss. The quiet man with the mind of a researcher changed everything, not by making his soldiers shoot more, but by teaching them how to see. So, the next time you think of a hero, remember, it's not always the person with the biggest weapon. Sometimes, it's the quiet one in the back, the observer, the researcher, the librarian, who is carefully gathering the knowledge that will ultimately win the day. Thanks so much for watching this deep dive into a little-known piece of history. If you found this story as fascinating as I did, do me a favor and hit that like button. And for more stories about the hidden figures who shaped our world, make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications. We'll see you in the next video.